So let me start with a demonstration. You may use any editor that you want. It absolutely doesn't matter. So only for the comfort, only for quick coding, I'm going to use Visual Studio. As I said, you may use Notepad even for coding. But instead of wasting time, I'm going to use a template here which can give me or which can help me coding for HTML5. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to add one new file which is a HTML page now, and let's try to yeah. So by default in this file, maybe I'll try to save the content as well. Let me try to save the content somewhere where all the content I'll be storing later on. So E drive, maybe I'll try to store it in under demos. Let's call this as index.html. So to start with, we have a first site here. That is in HTML, just to convey browser, that is I am sending HTML5, you require this root tag, that is doc type HTML only. You must have noticed earlier we used to use XML-NS and some namespace all the time. For example, namespace like this. So we used to specify doc type, we used to specify HTML, and we also used to specify XML namespace that maybe the page is according to some XYZ standard. But then HTML5 recommends that do not specify any XML-NS, just specify doc type HTML. And that becomes a server telling to client browser that I am sending HTML5. Then obviously these attributes are also not required, like language and XML namespace. If you want, you can have it in XML, you can have it in HTML if you really require one. Then usual tags we have head, then title, then body. I'm going to specify here HTML5 test. Now here we go and start with some new tags now. So to start with, I'll start with a tag which is called as header tag. Now header means if you have noticed a normal corporate pages. In corporate pages, we have got a tabular structure. The top section which consists of logo is called as maybe a header section. The footer section where you specify at the bottom, you specify something called as terms and conditions, maybe let's say copyrights and everything. That section is normally called as footer section. Normally you must have seen on the top side, you have something called as navigation elements, which means menus all the time. Normally on the left hand side, you may find out some quick launch icons. On the right hand side of the page, normally you find out something called as new items, or you may find out something like advertisements, which may be irrelevant to the actual content of the page itself. And then at the middle, you will find out we have got some text data, we have got some images data, we may have some video data also. So to represent the contents in a specific manner, HTML5 offers you specific tags now. And to start with, we have now header. In the header, we'll specify header in the sense, again, if you put header at the bottom, there's no problem. But then header should go always at the top. That's a recommendation. Nothing will happen automatically in case of HTML5 unless until it's a video, audio, or like canvas. So in header tag, I'll specify this is header of the HTML5 page. Then we do have another maybe content. So this is going to represent header of the page, which means head level content or top level content. If there is anything like at the bottom, you may specify another tag called as footer. If you see, I'm getting intelligence because I'm coding in Visual Studio. Maybe let's say @ or copyrights to some company. After that, maybe between header and footer, I would like to put up now certain contents. Maybe contents like in a tabular format. You may want to put up some content on the right hand side. Obviously, putting the content on the right hand side is your job, as I said. So at any point of time, if you wish to put content which are completely, you can say advertisement or news and events specific content, put in a tag called as aside. Inside the aside, you may specify any content that you want. Can I use here B like tag? Can I use here a tag like font? Can I use a tag called as center? You'll find out the zigzag line will tell you that these tags are not actually supported in HTML5. But what if I write down these tags? Will my code work or not? Your code will definitely work, no problem. Because no browser has made it too strict that when you say HTML5, it has to be strictly to HTML5 standard. So browser basically forgives you and tells you like, okay, I understand center, I understand font. But if at all browser decides to be, or any browser decides to be strict to when you say uh, or tells your page like if you say HTML5, have only HTML5 or tries to find out only HTML5 into your code. In that case, it can create a problem. So anyway, center tag is not supported, font tag is not supported. So in the aside, you may put up any other content the way you want. Even can I have div tag support still? You do have a div tag support still, but then suggestion is not to use div tag and use content specific tags. We normally use div for almost anything in case of HTML, even in ASP.NET. Designers may use div almost for everything or every presentation. But then instead of using div, HTML5 suggests let's have HTML5 specific tags. Now tags like we may have tag which may be we can say foot as I said header section, bottom section, images like figures. We have got external content which can be aside itself. So suggestion, let's not use div. Then what shall I use? We have a very nice tag called as section then. So maybe in the aside I will specify some content. This is aside. Then after maybe let's say aside, I'll put br. I'll put by myself br. I'll put again br in between footer and aside. Now after aside, let's say somewhere on the left hand side, or maybe I should specify this is aside, maybe on right. This header of the HTML5 maybe at the top. And here we'll specify this footer obviously or maybe at bottom is what I'll specify. Now after this, we may want to specify certain contents which can be specifically for navigation purpose. So maybe in between aside and the header, I would specify one more element which is called as nav now. And inside the nav, you may specify so-called commands. So you may specify command like let's say command number 1, command 2, command 3. Now let's see this zigzag line here. So in between the closing tags or element command. Okay, so we'll try to specify no inline tag. I'll specify command 1, 2, 3, 4, no inner content. Let's specify this much 1, 2, 3, and we can specify now here something called as command 1 content. You can specify as inline tag content command 1, 2, 3. So navigation has commands after that, which can be menu elements obviously. I'll specify here maybe just to mention that is below is for navigation, and you may put up actual content into the command itself, and maybe you can handle along with id like on click and so on, like navigating to particular pages or so. Afterwards, maybe after aside, we may try to add some more content. So at any point of time, if you have a content which is like representing some sections or blocks, for example, if I have to tell about my company, if I have to tell about myself, in that case, we may have some sort of small headers and we may have some content associated with it, maybe some photographs as well. So then we can very well specify in here maybe a tag called as section now. Inside the section, keep it in mind, you can use h1, h2, anything that you want. It's just a compliance. That suggestion by HTML5 community or standard is every section must have a header. What if I don't add one? I'll show you in a while how do you validate your HTML5 HTML. So you may specify any header tag. Again, a suggestion from HTML5 community, that is or standard, h1 should be used only once. So use h1 once in your page and use h2 to h6 many number of times or the number of times that you want. So I would, to keep it simple, I'll put h2. I'll specify this is about me here. And then we can specify some content in section. you may try to use P like tag, or you may try to specify text data using article content. So now we may specify P, and we can specify any content that we want over here. So maybe I'll put up some real content. Maybe this is about me in an article tag. After, let's say, article is done, maybe I wish to specify some content like maybe image also. So specifically for presenting image, suggestion again, let's not have img tag directly. Suggestion is inside the figure you can have this img tag. You can specify source equal to, and you can pick up the URL. I don't have any kind of a URL right now, so I'm going to place some sort of a photo from wallpaper into the image tag. Window web wallpaper, and I would pick up one wallpaper, which maybe let's say this one. And then somewhere at the same location where I have added or where I have stored that HTML, I'm going to add the content as well. So with this HTML, I will add img7 JPG. And I would specify now that refer img7. You may specify height equal to 300 pixel. We'll specify width equal to 300 pixel also. Now here what happens is, do not include 300 pixel also. Okay, absolutely fine, not a problem. Maybe what I'll do is I'll try to specify these values into a style attribute. That's going to help us. Height colon, remove the specifics. Width, I'll specify should go to so-called 300 pixel and complete the style tag then. Afterwards, like if you try to add a kind of, you can say, attribute called as name equal to my img also. Have a look at the cursor. Name attribute is not valid element for HTML5. Specific image is what it says, which means we can have a name but not for image. Why? This kind of, you can say, things are removed just because of non-usage. People never used to use the name property of img also, so they removed it. When we used to use, we learned the tag called as, suppose, font. You may have learned a tag called as center, but do people really use it? No, people never really use it. People try to use font and center through something which is called as styles or CSS. In that case, why to keep a tag if at all people are not using it? So they have removed it simply because of the non-usage. Have they given any reason or reason with every tag or attribute that they have banned? Yes, that can be very well checked on Worldwide Consortium's website itself. Like why the tag is banned, and if at all it is banned, then what is the replacement available? Most of the time replacement is style itself, CSS itself. But then here, specifically for name attribute also, we don't have any replacement. What if I add it by myself? As I said some time back, there is no problem if you add it forcefully here. If you add it forcefully, it's just going to go and take it as it is. Browser is not going to say anything to you. But then your page is definitely not HTML5 compliant. So we have a figure, and then figure can also have something called as figure caption, which means the title for your image. I'll specify photo or my photo as a figure caption. So just like we specify article P, just like we specify section, we specify figure inside it now. Now, just like we have got these tags, we also have got a tag which is called as video as a tag. Now with the video, we have a parameter which is simply called as source, and we can pick up a source for a video which can be a very well-known format. Which formats are we supporting right now? So you'll find out we can go for maybe H360 format, maybe we can go for OGG as a format, or we may go for something called as maybe a VM8 as a format. So is AVI supported? That depends on which browser you open up. But what will happen if at all, let's say OGG is a format which is not supported, suppose, by IE. Video tag actually supports one more syntax, that you can specify video here, and you can specify here itself something called as source, and source src equal to a video number 1. You may specify video number 2 and video number 3, and you can specify multiple sources. Will it run all the video files? Absolutely no. Make sure file names are same but extensions are different. So we may have some OGG extension file, we may have some file which with the extension like AVI also, and then whichever browser understands whichever extension can very well play that file for us. Do you want all the controls specifically for video also? That by default you will find out is available. You may specify here something called as autoplay is equal to autoplay, which means it will start automatically playing the page as well. If you specify something called as controls equal to controls, which means for pause, for stop, for restart, whatever controls are required, those are automatically given to you on the UI itself. Anyway, I'm going to comment this for a while. Now, just like this, the entire application, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and run this project. So let me say F5 or right click and view in a browser. I'm going to open a different browser. I'll open IE first. This is Edge browser, which comes with so-called Windows 10. And then code actually works exactly in the same manner as we have authored. There's nothing which automatically HTML5 does here. And then let's say page gets rendered. But how do I ensure that this page is according to HTML5 standard? And how do I know I have not made any mistake in HTML5 code? So let me close this now and let me take you to a website which is for Worldwide Consortium offers you HTML5 check. So I'll specify now uh, W3C HTML validator, and then we'll get this validator.w3.org that we can go to, and one option you can copy your entire code and you can paste it here itself as a direct input. So copy paste it and say check it. So this is going to go through your entire HTML and it's going to tell you whether your HTML is valid or not. And then we have got certain errors right now. And the error is element command is not allowed as a child of nav. Okay, so I made a mistake. I tried to insert command inside a nav itself. So maybe I should remove this. Maybe nav 123 is what I should go for. Yeah. Maybe I'll go for command like tag now. Yeah. Let me again copy the content. Let's paste the content now and again say check this content. The time we see check again, we must have seen like first error is gone. It's not refreshed yet. So I have got command here which is inside the body. Let's copy again. Let's remove this content and then let's right click and paste it. Now again I would say check this and show me the result. So element command is not allowed as a child of body even. Okay, so this should have gone somewhere else. Need to check again. Let me remove this nav as a tag. Let me copy paste again. Let's remove whatever is by default there and direct input will be check now. Run this and let's see the first error now. So if we scroll, you'll find out now all the errors are gone and by default only information is there. There's one warning though that article lacks heading. Suggestion is also that if at all you have got section and section has a head H1 or H2, same way suggestion article should also have H. So I'll say specify H2, H3, and whether you specify any content into it, that doesn't matter. But it's always good that we specify one. I'll specify maybe about article. And this entire content I'm going to go copy paste now one more time and click on check button. And somewhere here you'll find out what remains is only and only info right now. So it can show you like there are no errors or warnings to show. However, it contains info. Something called as the content type is text/html, which means whenever this page comes from server side to client side, server side will mention into the header of HTTP that the content is of type HTML. Now, after all this HTML check, what else maybe exists in HTML5? So let me add one more page now for checking input tags in HTML. So I'm going to add again a new file here, completely blank file. Let's name this file as, let's open this file. We can save this file at the same location, but this time I'll name the file as test input tags.html. Again, we'll remove whatever is absolutely not required and we'll remove what is not required and we'll specify again input tags. Something which is very important that HTML5 offers us is called as new input tags now. So you may go for input tag. We all have used input tags or input types like type equal to button, type equal to text, type equal to submit, type equal to hidden, and so on. Now, first time we'll have a different types for input now. Example, the time you say control space or look for IntelliSense, Visual Studio may offer you multiple input types availability right now. For example, if I specify email as a type now, let's see what happens if I specify email as a type. Now again, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say view in a browser. The time you run, actually it doesn't give me anything great. Let's try opening the same page in Chrome like browser now. So I'll open it in Chrome now. Open this. We have again nothing in, we could say, UI. But then what is it that type equal to email should do? Maybe it should do the validation. But then when it should do the validation? By obviously whenever submission is about to happen. Remember in case of ASP.NET or remember in case of normal submission, we always have authored whether it's HTML, whether it's a PHP, whether it's a JSP or whether it's ASP or ASP.NET. We always have authored a JavaScript which can help us do the validation in case of HTML. Then instead of we doing a validation in case of HTML, can't we do the validation without writing any kind of a JavaScript itself? And that's what HTML5 API offers you. HTML5 gives you number of other input types and which does the validation automatically. But when submission is about to happen, the submission itself is banned if at all data itself inside the control is invalid. Prove it. And to prove it, I'll have here, let's say a form tag, though we don't have any server side right now or server side code, we just have a blank page right now. I would say submit to server, method equal to post, and inside the form I'll add this input type equal to email, and I'll also have input type equal to submit just in case we require to submit to server side or to simulate the server side submission, and then I specify submit me. Now let's try running this piece of code. Refresh it here and then let's try to specify any invalid data out here. The time you click, you get an error and the error conveys that please include @ in the email also. Isn't it amazing? We did not do any validation on the client side and then somebody is doing it automatically for me just because I specified input type equal to email and the code starts working now. But then what will happen if I have to specify that? What if the user does not specify anything? So suppose if I make it empty and if I click on submit, so the page submission happens and obviously same page comes back. So there is no server side code, so maybe we have an error. Absolutely okay. But why submission is even allowed? We also have, if at all you want the values to be entered, no blank should go to the server side. We have one more attribute added in HTML5 called as required equal to required, which means it becomes mandatory now that you should enter the value specifically for this HTML control. So again, I'm going to run this now. Maybe I'll better prefer Chrome to run the tags. And then when you click, the first error which comes up is please fill in this field, error by Chrome. If you enter anything wrong, then it says so sorry, please include @. If I include @ and if I click on submit again, it says please enter a part following @, which means right now it's not complete yet. Maybe let's say a dot anything over here. Now you click and the submission happens, which means submission is allowed in multiple cases. First case was submission is allowed blank. We have removed that part now because we made required equal to required. Now submission is allowed with the valid data only. And since there is no server-side code, we get that error that you observed some time back. What other types exist in HTML5? So we may go for input type is equal to suppose number, and you can put up a value here itself. I put BR now. Here I'll say email. Here I would say number or maybe age. And you may specify multiple other you can say parts. For example, date you can specify and put up now input type is equal to date or date time, and no value as of now. So I'm going to remove name attribute because we are anyway not using it anywhere. So let me remove name equal to name all over. Let's have value equal to blank initially, And then whenever you run the code now in browser like Chrome, view in a browser, I'm going to copy the URL, close this, go to Chrome and paste it over here. As you can see, if I say submit right now, it says enter correct data. At the same time, if you enter invalid data right now, see, I'm trying to type now characters in here. It is not allowing me to enter characters right now. I'm trying it, but it's not allowing me. And if you can see this bars now, which allows me to enter the number using the scroll bar itself. The time you click on this date time, it actually pops up the date time calendar and you can pick up the rate the way you want it. Just imagine how difficult it was when there was no controls like such, when there was no sys.js, when there was no Microsoft Ajax.js, when there was no HTML controls on the client side decorated by some sort of third parties or Microsoft, and then we always used to code for all of this. Those guys who may remember, we used to do something like on a click we used to pop up a window, and using window pop-up, after selection of a data from the calendar control, we used to close the you can say pop-up, and the content we used to hand it over to parent window also, which means all code we used to write down. Now it's absolutely not required because HTML5 can handle this for us. There's one more important fact to note here. If you enter name, suppose age, I want a validation that age should be between so and so range only. We also have it here. Just specify type equal to number, specify minimum value, suppose 10. If I specify maximum value, suppose 20. And now again, if I run the code, let me say view in a browser. Let me copy this as it is not working with IE that religiously. Let me open in a browser. At the same time, now suppose if I enter valid email address and in the age, if I enter suppose 89 as a value, and if I select some date now, if I say submit, you end up in error. Value must be less than or equal to 20. Suppose if I specify 0 over here and submit, you get another error which conveys value must be greater than or equal to 10, which means I always require to pass on the value which is between 10 and 11, and then the submission gets allowed automatically. Is it not easy? That, and this is not only for email number and date. If you see, we have got many other types available in case of HTML5, which means we can go for color box as well. Just to show you the content, let's save it. Let's go and run the piece of code again. Again, I'll copy this. I'll close it. I'll go to the Chrome browser and I'm going to paste it one more time over here. Have a look what you get as a color box right now, so that you can actually go and pick up a color the way you want it. So such things exist in case of HTML5. New input controls arrive. What if when these HTML controls are not supported on the client end? Then how do I go and identify that HTML5 is not supported, and maybe I need to go and execute some script right now? How do I identify whether HTML5 is supported or not? There are multiple ways again. What are those? We are going to go and have a look at it.